The desert has a way of stripping a man down to the bone. It doesn't lie. It doesn't pretend. It just is. That is exactly why Nick Sanders chose it. At 42 years old, Nick had seen enough complexity for a dozen lifetimes. He was a federal investigator, fraud, property crimes, the white-collar stuff that rots a city from the inside out. He was done with it. He wanted grease on his hands. He wanted the smell of gasoline and sagebrush. He bought 6 acres of scrubland just outside the manicured fake green borders of a place called Desert Palms Estates. He moved in with his wife, Jess, and their daughter, Maddie. For 7 days, it was paradise. But peace offends people who thrive on control. It started on a Tuesday. Nick walked down his long gravel driveway. Zip-tied to his metal gate was a heavy cream-colored envelope, no postage, hand-delivered. Inside was a document on thick, expensive letterhead. Notice of mandatory HOA integration. Your property is deemed contiguously relevant. Initiation fee $4,000, due immediately. Now, most people panic when they see legal jargon. Nick laughed. He didn't panic. He went inside, unrolled his survey maps on the kitchen table, and checked his deed. He wasn't just technically outside their jurisdiction. He was a quarter-mile away from their nearest property line. He didn't call, he didn't beg. He drafted a single page. He drove to their community bulletin board, marched past the pool, and tacked it up right in the center. A message to the world. My property is sovereign private land. Any further communication will be considered harassment. He thought that was the end of it. He was wrong. The next morning, the silence broke, not with noise, but with a presence. Nick was drinking his coffee on the back porch when he saw them. Fresh boot prints in the sand, inside his fence line. He grabbed his jacket. He followed the track up the ridgeline. And there she was, standing on his land, holding a clipboard, looking like she'd taken a wrong turn on the way to a country club luncheon. Karen Peterson, the president. You're trespassing. I'm Karen Peterson. I'm the president. We need to assess the sight lines for the integration. There is no integration. You saw my note. You're on private property. Leave. She finally looked at him. Her eyes were cold, calculating. She didn't see a federal investigator. She saw a guy in a dirty t-shirt. The previous owners, they were difficult too. They left. Resistance is expensive, Mr. Sanders. Compliance is inevitable. 3 days later, the flashing lights arrived. Officer Riley, good cop, tired eyes. Karen called 911 claiming aggressive squatters. Nick showed his deed. Riley left. But Karen was watching from her SUV, just shouting that one word, compliance. It became a siege. Monday, fire department for illegal burning. Tuesday, code enforcement for unpermitted structures. Wednesday, police again. She claimed Nick waved a weapon. It was a torque wrench. Then she crossed the line. The line you do not cross with a man like Nick Sanders. A van pulled up. Child Protective Services. She reported that Nick was exposing his daughter to chemicals, to danger. The caseworkers saw the truth. The house was safe, but the look of fear in his daughter's eyes when strangers walked through her bedroom, that changed the game. Nick, listen to me. People like her, they don't weaponize CPS unless they're desperate or unless they're clearing the board for something big. Document everything. The anger burned, but Nick put it on ice. He went to work. He remembered the welcome packet, a QR code on the back. He scanned it. He didn't look at the website. He looked at the code. Buried in the source code, a hidden directory, a PDF, Memorandum of Understanding, Green Vista Developments. He read it. And the map Karen was sketching? It made perfect sense. A massive golf course extension, millions of dollars, but they needed an access road right through Nick's Ridge. The deadline was June 30th. If they didn't get the land, the money evaporated. And then the smoking gun, a bank deposit slip image. $42,000 paid directly to Karen Peterson, not the HOA. It was a bribe, and she had already spent it. One was Dave, a weak-chinned board member. They rolled 3 blue 55-gallon drums under Nick's fence. The labels read, "Toxic Waste." She was trying to frame him, seize the land through environmental condemnation. But Nick didn't sleep. He moved the drums. He cleaned the sand. When the inspectors arrived the next morning, nothing. Just pristine desert floor. That night, the cameras triggered again. A heat signature. Thermal imaging. Someone creeping toward the workshop where the classic cars were stored, carrying a gas can. Whoosh! The match struck. The wall caught fire. But Nick was ready. He hit the sprinklers. The fire died in a hiss of steam. The figure panicked, dropped a glove, and ran. Nick checked the footage. He zoomed in. It wasn't a stranger. It was Aaron, Karen's nephew. Attempted arson. That's a felony. A trap for Dave. Nick had the arsonist. He had the bribe, but he wanted the king, or rather, the queen. He needed Karen to think she was still in control. He left his workshop unlocked. He placed a folder on the desk labeled Evidence, and he waited in the dark. Dave, the board member, climbed through the window, sweating, shaking. He grabbed the folder. He opened it. Inside, there was just a single note. "Smile, Dave, you're on candid camera." Click. The lights flooded on. Nick was sitting in the corner holding a mug of coffee. "Sit down, Dave. We need to talk." He gave Dave a choice, jail now or become a pawn. Dave took the folder to Karen. He told her everything was fine. He let her think she had won. June 29th, one day before the deadline. Nick sat at his computer. He uploaded the file, the bribe, the video, the arson, the forgery. Subject line, RICO pattern identified. Sent to the district attorney. Sent to the sheriff. Sent to the FBI. 7:02 a.m. The sun hit the valley floor. Nick stood on his porch. He didn't hear birds. He heard the rumble. A convoy, 4 sheriff's cruisers, 2 black SUVs. They didn't stop at the gate. They smashed through the security arm of Desert Palms. They kicked in the HOA office door, but the real show was at Karen's house. Officer Riley led the charge. Karen Peterson, warrant for arrest, conspiracy to commit arson, fraud, and racketeering. Hands behind your back. She came out in a silk robe and curlers, screaming about her rights, screaming that she was the president. Riley spun her around. The cuffs clicked. From his porch, a quarter-mile away, Nick lowered his binoculars. He raised his coffee cup in a silent toast. The fallout was nuclear. The entire board indicted. Karen took a plea deal, 14 years federal time. The golf course deal died that afternoon. As for Nick, he put up a new sign. No threats, just a QR code. It links to a website, HOAWatch.us, a digital museum of their crimes. A warning to the next person who thinks a badge makes them a god. The neighborhood is quiet now. Every now and then, a neighbor waves. Nick waves back. He went back to his garage. He fixed his cars. He watched the sunset. Because in the desert, silence isn't empty. It's earned.